Okay, our next speaker is Antoine. He's also from France, from Carte Cité, I think.
Correct.
And he will continue on the topic of indoor mapping.
Hello. So this presentation comes nicely after Cynthia's talk, and thank you to the organizer for making this happen. And there is one thing missing in this organization, so there is no indoor map of the areas. It's difficult to find your way sometimes. So my name is Antoine Riche, and I had the opportunity through my little company called Carte Cité to map some of the railway stations in Paris, and I'm going to talk a bit about that, but we're not just going to talk about railway stations.
And so I'm Adrien Pavie. I'm a student in geomatics, and I'm also the developer of OpenLevelUp. So I'm interested in indoor mapping, and all of it started by simply wanted to create a map of subways in my city. But local contributors said, but there is no map to show this. I said, okay, I will try to create something to show the data, and that's how it started. So the indoor tag was introduced a few years ago, and there are like 100,000 items all around the world, and like 15,000 only in France. So we see that there is a huge rise of the using of this indoor tag, but what is it made for? So let's see the different use of this. So indoor mapping can be done pretty everywhere. As we saw, it's well suited for mapping the railway station in Paris, but not only this. You can use it on shopping malls, you can use it on museums, you can use it on public offices. In fact, you can use it pretty everywhere, which is open to public. But if you want to do indoor mapping in a public place, but managed by a private operator, it's better to ask permission to do so. That way you don't run into troubles. So let's see some first use case, which is accessibility. So most of the public places have to be accessible for everyone, including disabled people. So in France, we have laws that make it mandatory to be accessible for everyone. So with a group of students in a French university, we did the indoor mapping of the whole campus, and with the help of technical services, we identified the accessibility defects on the campus. So the services can manage to solve them in an easy way. And we have a whole data for the campus, which is accessible to everyone on OpenStreetMap. Another use case, which is completely different, which is business. Still with a group of students in the same university, we had a project working with a fast food chain where they wanted to open a new coffee shop in a city. So they wanted to find the optimal point of sale to open this coffee shop. So they use indoor data in shopping malls to find where they can find an optimal spot for their shop. So they use the indoor data to see the size of the point of sales, but also if there are any competitors around. So it's a different use case, and as you can see, we can do a lot of things with indoor data.
And obviously, there are all areas where passengers, travelers are useful to map indoors. Usually, when you travel somewhere, you don't necessarily know where the area, so it's very useful to have indoor maps to find your platform, to find a connection to the underground, to find where to buy ticket offices, where to find the ticket office, the toilets, the shops, anything. And as part of well, I won't say too much, but the data we produced for SNCF is actually being used in the mobile app application, which was described early on. And the other reason is we can't leave it all to Google, because yes, Google is also mapping indoors. And actually they've been mapping railway station in France They started it for the Euro 2016 Football Cup. And so we got to do it as well. Yeah. And this snapshot is from the Android Google Maps application. For some reason, you can't have the level selector on the normal web Google Map. So now I'd like to share some of the tools and techniques we use to map the railway stations. And to do that, I built a team of 3 people, including Charles, who is a QGIS expert, and his skills were very useful for that work, and Stefan, who is a mapillary aficionado and is very skilled in taking pictures and is a real maker, as we will see in a minute. So essentially, we did that work in 2 stages. The first stage was to use architect plans, which were supplied to us by SNCF. And we were careful to use those plans very precisely because this was the base from the rest of the work. And so the first step was to georeference those plans to the building footprints. And fortunately in France, we have good building footprints because we can use the data from the cadastre, and which is imported in OpenStreetMap. So we were able to do very good georeferencing to some extent, because sometimes it was difficult to match plans from different levels. They were not so accurate. Some plans were actually made after the buildings were built. A lot of the stations were built in the 19th century. The plans were made afterwards. And then we produced tiles from using GEDAL to tile those georeference plans to up to zoom level 23. And tiling was essential so that we could use architect's plans comfortably in JOSM. So this is what you get in JOSM when you have architect's plans which are georeference. And you can see it's quite nice to map from those plans, and you can be fairly accurate. And actually, it was tempting to map the stairways as closed ways. We could possibly do it. And sometimes it's not so easy because there are, well, first we're not architects, so we can't really read plans, all the information in them. And sometimes the plans differ from one another. And it's sometimes difficult to know which way is up for a conveyor, for instance. And some conveyors span several levels. It was difficult to find out. We created a preset for GEOSM in order to help us produce good quality data and also to do it more efficiently. And this preset was built from the wiki page that Vincent described early on. There's just one thing I'd like to add is that this wiki page was put together not from existing sources, but it was not just put together by SNCF, it was also discussed with the community. And I remember in the State of the Map 2015, attending a workshop which was led by Florian, which is here, who made sure that this proposal is accepted by the community, which is important to outline. And this is an opportunity to say big thank you to the JOSM developers, because this intensive mapping we've been doing really showed how fit to purpose JOSM is. It's really good to produce data, and some features are really impressive, really good. So we're coming to phase 2. We went to Paris to take pictures of all the areas. I forgot to mention that out of the 388 stations, we only mapped 8 of them, just the most complex ones. The railway station in Paris, which have several levels, including 2 underground stations, which are extremely complex, with many levels and stairways and entrances. And so we went to visit all these 8 stations, and this is where Stefan comes in, the mapillary aficionado. He built a unique 360 degrees camera kit, which is made from 4 Chinese cameras, and they put on top of a pod, and we call that the V4M pod, View for Map. And he spent a night actually hacking an Android application in order to take the 4 pictures at once, which was quite important for the process. And the whole thing worked perfectly well for the 4 days and the 8 stations we covered and the many kilometers. And there was no trouble whatsoever. The only difficulty was the weight of carrying it for so many kilometers. So you know you're going to say, well done, but you got pictures, but they can't possibly be geotagged. So correct, we then had a process to geotag those pictures, because obviously these pictures are indoor, under a roof or on the ground, so they couldn't possibly be geotagged. So we did geotag them, and when we were surveying, we actually used field papers that we produced from the architect plans, well, from the OpenStreetMap data we produced with the architect plans, and we produced those field papers using QGIS, and we could produce them level by level with a clever style sheet. So we took note of all the traces that Stefan did, and taking times and a lot of information. And then there was a little bit tedious process of localizing the pictures, and we used various tools, like EXIF tool to geotag the pictures, but also Python scripts to correlate a GPS track along with pictures. And I won't go into the details because I forgot about it. And Stefan wrote it on his website, which you can have a look at. It's all in French, but if you're interested, I might be inclined to translate it. And the result is happy mappers. This is what you see on this slide is what you get in JOSM with the pictures, which you can see here. And you can see that the 4 pictures which were actually taken in the same place are split apart so that we could select them one by one, and which was pretty essential. We didn't even try to produce a sphere or one picture, a real 360 degrees picture, because first there is no appropriate viewer in JOSM, and we don't see the point. We prefer to have the direction, the orientation of the picture in order to use properly what we could see on the data. And the pictures we had are very high quality, and not only we could see what's written on the screen here at full scale, but also we could read the time on the clock, which are about 30 meters at the end of the station under the roof. So the amount of information we could get from those pictures was really impressive. Another tool we use is, of course, OpenLevelUp, written by Adrien. And that's really essential because that gave us another view of the data we produced to the one we could see in JOSM. And with OpenLevelUp, you can select the floor level, obviously. You can select individual items and see all the tags in them. And you can, it is based on overpass request, so you have up-to-date data, which was essential for us, and many extra features, well, some extra features that Adrien might describe. For instance, you can link it to mapillary pictures, which is quite good. So thank you to Adrien for this, because that helped a lot for doing this job. And now both Adrien and I will like to share what's coming next about indoor mapping, and some concerns we have as well with this new type of data we're creating. First thing is that you don't always have architect plans, and sometimes you can take pictures of evacuation map and sort of georeference them with a peak layer plugin. It's not so easy. And but there is this video which you could have a look at, and this is quite impressive because, well, this video is made by a university, a robotics laboratory, and they're coupling LiDAR with some piece of software, which happens to be open source, which is good, and to do simultaneous localization and mapping. And the video is quite impressive because when you look at it, there is this man working in corridor and offices, and on the upper right corner of the video, you can see the map building itself automatically. So that's really impressive. And what's coming next for us, perhaps, is that Stefan has ordered on a Kickstarter project a sort of a LiDAR which is quite small and affordable, and he should get it before Christmas. So I guess this will be his new toy to play with for next year, and I'm pretty sure he's going to try to reuse that open source software to do SLAM, as they call it. So that's something to look forward to. Know some concerns. And this shows the Mapnik OpenStreetMap of Paris and the area of the Haussmann subway underground station, which is the platforms you can see on the slide are 20 meters below ground level. And whatever we do with the level and layer tags, they still show up on top of buildings. This is no good, really. And so I'd say that the Mapnik style need to adapt. So that's something to consider. And I wanted to share that with you today. Another impact is it becomes hard to edit it. This is what you get when you open Gare de Lyon in JOSM. And it's, well, beginners will just run away, and actually not just beginners will run away. If you know a little bit about JOSM, you can filter. The trick is to use filter in order to only work on one level. And this is just essential. But in order to do that, you need to know what tag to filter on. And then you need to work on the proper filter, which is using regular expressions. So it's not so easy for everyone. And but it works. But then what about the online editor called ID?
So, in order to make this situation more comfortable, I created a fork of ID, the ID editor, which is called ID Indoor, which will help people maintain places having indoor tagging. So we can add a bench on a given level because there is a filter like on OpenLevelUp, which is just under the zoom buttons, where you have the same logic. You have only one level at a time. So this feature makes edit easier. You have also extra features like indoor presets. In that way, you can show the indoor object in a proper way, and you can edit it simply. And you have some other extra feature like simple mapillary linking to an OpenStreetMap object. So it makes easier to have pictures associated with in the OpenStreetMap data. But it's not well suited for the moment to create a map from scratch. It's mostly made for editing existing places. But in the future, there will be some new features that will help create new indoor places, like the ability to show a floor map or emergency map in the background, so you can draw the different rooms, the corridors over it, in order to make creating a new place simpler. You can also check topology between levels. For example, if you are at a level 1 and you move a node, but this node is also used on a level 0, it will break everything on a level 0. So you will have a warning saying you might be careful because you are breaking things. And also, last point, it will have a better indoor preset in order to make editing more easier. But I have a secret dream. It's that ID Indoor will be useless in a few months because the main ID editor will provide all these tools for helping everyone mapping indoors. But it's something to discuss, I think. So having a good editor is a thing, but having a good map viewer is also important. So actually, OpenLevelUp has only one interface, which is the same for everyone, but we have different publics for OpenLevelUp. We have main users who want simply to show a map in order to know where they are in complex buildings. We have also contributors who want more tools, and operators who want to be able to do to help visitors locate on their building. So there is already a new version of OpenLevelUp, which is still in alpha. So you can see it's more smoother and more simple to use. And there will be more tools for contributors, as we can see. For Building Manager, there will be the ability to import, to embed the map on the website. And so we are running out of time, so
well,
it's time to conclude.
Just to conclude, this is indoor mapping is not happening just in France, and I came across this project OpenStation Map, which is being done in Germany, and they're very similar, which is good news. And but there are maybe some things to share. There, share practices, share tools. There is this proposal of modeling stairwells as a closed way. So there are some people doing working on OpenStation Map in this conference. So we will be happy to talk to them. And there are also some questions going forward that we don't need to answer now. And so I'll be brief. And but since we do have indoor data, I know this raises some question as to how to use it properly, what impact this can have on topology, on routing, whether we model linear footways or not, that sort of questions, which I would be happy to, well, this really, I want to say that this forum, this conferences might be the opportunity to start talking about all these questions, which are going to be very important. And this is it, thank you.
Just before you leave, a very small housekeeping. We will having lunch after the third talk. After the lunch, there is a group photo. So everyone move from the Mandela room to the group photo site. And there is bird of feather session, so check the board.
Hi, Antoine and Adrien, you don't know me, but I'm Simon, by the way. I would like to thank you from turning the tagging scheme that we devised 2 years ago into something real. My question would be, do you think that the tagging scheme works as it is now? And just a note on the side, the next Vespucci version will be supporting indoor layer level selection.
Sorry, I didn't quite get your question. Can you?
The question was whether you thought that the tagging scheme for indoor elements as it is now is sufficient or not.
Oh, sorry. Sorry.
A real technical question.
Well, we quite happy. Sorry, as far as I can tell, we were quite happy with the tagging scheme. Maybe it needs to evolve with some different values, and the QA tools might need to evolve as well to consider new tags or new values. But as far as I can tell, there was no problem with it. And there were two models for indoor mapping actually, and the other one, which was using relations, has been deprecated nowadays, and we didn't need relations for doing this, so that's good.
Another question?
Another question?
One of the obvious applications would be indoor routing. Can you elaborate on this a bit, perhaps?
Si, tu as quelque chose sur le routing.
Yeah, I tried to do some indoor routing a few time ago, mainly for disabled people, but it's a kind of complicated because with different levels and the connection between levels, it's complicated to manage the fact that this elevator is a shared node between levels, so it's possible to do routing, but it's kind of complex. It's something we have to work on.
Okay, as an add-on to this answer, an announcement, we are from OpenStationMap on Sunday having a session, full hour session, to discuss exactly these tagging points, how to put it into practice, how to put it forward, with lessons learned from the application, the practice. For example, the SNCF found they need turnstiles and so on and all these things. So I invite you to be here on Sunday afternoon for a full hour about all the technical details.
Excellent. Good.
One last question.
And can Daniel da Silva move to the stage, please?
Yeah, my name is Roland Wagner, so I'm the other Roland, what just Roland Ulbricht announced. My question was about the derived work issue, about the CAD plan. As you have mentioned, you have started also with SNCF on existing CAD plans, and you took them in the background. And so one thing is, sometimes they are not available, as you said. That's why these LIDAR approaches, or like this disto, which are very cheap now, are quite good to start more or less on scratch. Second question is about, is there a kind of experience about the licenses, because it's direct, let's say, derived work, you geocode it, digitalize it in a way. Evacuation maps is exactly, this was a very classical point, where is it, you find them everywhere, but the right, who owns the property, was always a big barrier to derive this work. Did you good experiences on that point?
I don't have so much experience. I know this is an issue to whether we can use effectively evacuation maps. And the main thing is also only mapping public areas. And there are also some concern about providing data in the sort of a security paranoia we have at the moment. And it's sometimes difficult, but we have the luxury to get architect plans that help. And I know I've been mapping indoor for evacuation maps, but maybe I shouldn't be doing it. I don't know.
Well, I think the legal point is very difficult.
It's important,
there.
yeah.
It's an absolute critical legal point. It's not the technical point, it's more the legal point.
I agree, yeah, very important.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Let's thank our speaker again. May